Hey everybody, welcome to MMO Grind. Apparently, Puka has decided to take a long hiatus, so I am stuck again with Zaylin. I mean, I love you, Zaylin. Thank you very much for being here and being my awesome new co-host. I feel I've upset him. Tonight we are going to be talking about a subject that was brought up on the Camelot Unchained forums, as well as some people have been mentioning over this whole entire Camelot Unchained fiasco.
We're calling it a fiasco now?
I would call it a fiasco. That was pretty much a fiasco.
Okay. Hey, Bobo.
I mean, when it basically blows up the whole entire community, I would call it a fiasco.
Fiasco. Okay.
All right.
The Fiasco of the Year award. Or of the
a lot of people,
decade. The Fiasco of the Decade award.
Yeah, there you go. Fell back to the idea of 7 years of game development. What is a game engine even? I don't even understand. So we decided we would do a basic tutorial 101 of what a game engine is, kind of give the concept, understand the basics, understand what is and what isn't part of the game engine, and why it shouldn't have taken 7 years to make one. All right.
So basically how this will go tonight is I'll be asking Malice a lot of questions. Malice, and by no way is an expert in this. He is what we call a day study. He spent the day studying this. He has been a game dev in the past, so he does understand a lot of the terminology and kind of the mechanics of things and why things are the way that they are. So he's got that going for them. If you have questions
I'm really
that you
designer dev, so
if you have questions that you want to ask him, by all means type them into chat and I'll work them into the conversation, whether they are relative or not. Feel free. So Malice, why don't you start us off with, we hear a lot of talk about, this amazing new game engine. What the heck is a game engine? Like, when it comes to the game, what does it do for the game? What does it do for us as the player?
All right. So I guess the misnomer and concept that we have is, so all a game engine is much like Windows runs your PC. It is the core framework that everything else is attached to. It runs your basics, like your sound, your graphics, your logic.
The operating system for the game.
Right. I mean, everything technically runs on an engine. If it has a piece of software in it, modern calculators run on an engine. What makes a game engine what it is it's all about its focus. What it starts to, because everything is calling from memory. Things that go to your GPU, things that are calling from the memory manager to memory and back and forth, and how quickly you could do that. And we have run into there's of course always a limit. There's only so much memory that a client can have. There's only so much memory the server can have. And it has to divvy up that work, especially in an MMO environment, among a lot of events going all at once. Malice has the bacon. I want some bacon. I love bacon. I have been distracted by bacon. All right.
It's better than your cat.
Yeah, it smells better.
Sure, you could get bacon scented shampoo for your cat.
Ooh, this could be it. Well, that might be the end of the life of my cat, though. Crawl over my face while I'm sleeping.
They make bacon everything. Yeah, I mean, you can cook a lot of stuff in bacon grease and make it taste like bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we completely derailed your little monologue there.
But I mean, that's really the basics of what a game engine is just the thing that's running the memory management for the logic, your audio, your basic graphics.
This sounds like a pretty simple thing.
Right. It's all about the modules that are attached to it, because most engines are fairly modular. Again, think of we'll use another example. Think of it like a car. The frame of a car would be the engine, not the actual engine, mind you.
I'm so
And then
confused.
you would slap things on it. Well, like you would slap an engine in a car, the actual like gas engine makes it go. So it's how much power it puts out, things like that. And you can, so I want better graphics. I want better this. I want better networking. I want all these other things kind of snap tight into it. Now, again, as I mentioned, there's a limited amount of memory. So everything is a give and take. If I want really good graphics, I limit how much memory calls are going on to other things. So if I want really good graphics, I tend to have low amount of objects on the screen so that the GPU can effectively handle it. If I want lots of objects, using Camel and Chain as an example, they could never have really good graphics because, I mean, maybe far in the future when our engine technology continues to move forward and we can put a bajillion much more memory and everything like that in there. But at the end of the day, what we can shove through the network and what we can do through memory management, it's either a lot or really good, but you don't get a lot of really good.
So this idea that MJ keeps throwing at us of Linuxification has made everything better. What's that doing to the engine that they're working on?
Um, what exactly? That's a good question. I honestly don't know. What I can only assume is just like on your machine that you're watching us on right now, it runs on whatever operating system it runs on. And if you happen to be running on Linux, it has a much more low profile system. It's so bare bones that, and you can strip it down to however you want it and put whatever you want in it. Whereas like Windows comes with a lot of
Bloatware.
And the funny thing is it's as much as we call it bloatware, it's just like discussing like the Unity engine or Unreal 4 or anything like that. Those engines just come with services already in them. They just happen to, like, Unreal is a good engine. It does a lot of things well. Not amazing. They're not like the most amazing in any given thing, but they do everything well. And that's what Windows is designed around. It has a bunch of services already built into it to make everything run relatively well. Linux, for the programmer nerd, the high tech geeks, and the people who just don't want to play video games, when they put it on their on their PC, it is bare bones. It doesn't run all of these services, but it also means that it's not running a ton of those services that you don't need in memory. So it's opening up memory. It's opening up where the memory manager can put memory and shuffle memory and how fast it can move it. So going into Linux allows you to have a much more words, bare bones framework. And so at that point, you have more greater efficiency. I think someone was saying it's up to 30% more efficiency.
So Bobo says, so the game engine manages how the memory slash power and how the computer manages everything is required of it.
Right. So how much GPU is being used, how much processor is being used, all of that fun stuff.
Next question. We have they explained anything that makes their game engine unique? Because their game engine has always been like a headline for their project, have they proven anything that stands out about it?
Well, the theoretical is that it can run many more. So it's very specifically designed. It is a.
Let me pause you real quick, Mouse. We're not speaking for CSE. We have no real insight. This is purely
I don't know what the code is.
Conjecture on our part. So
what they've publicly showed us.
So please don't take this and go to MJ or anybody over there and go, well, these guys on Smart Gamer Live said blah, 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 blah. No. This is just a couple of schmucks on your screen talking about stuff that they kind of think they know something about.
This is an extrapolation of existing knowledge we've been told specifically by CU and MJ in his test videos and things like that. And
so back to the question, have they proven anything?
Well, what they've proven is they can run a ton of models without at a reasonable frame rate, which is impressive. Not as impressive as they'd like you to think sometimes, but impressive nonetheless. And why I say not as impressive as they're selling us sometimes is because it's a lot easier to run. And JB, maybe you can answer this. And I think it was mentioned in one of the streams, is when they were doing some of their testing, they were actually networking in those bots, right? They were all separately networked in so that they were actually pinging the server as opposed to being server run, correct? Because JB would be able to give us the answer on that. That becomes much more important than if just it's a bunch of server mobs that all look the same. That is a lot easier to run, say,
So
1,000 of than
in
it
in
is to.
theory, what they could do is have your main brain engine and then have all these other networked servers that they're basically pulling information from, and that engine is what is making those calls and making things run quicker and able to do more stuff than just having it all on one machine.
Well, no, it's not an. It's not. It's more. It's a software level thing. So it's just like I run services in Windows that make graphics or backgrounds or do all these other things like that. They're all features that Windows can do. They're embedded into Windows. They're not talking elsewhere. But like the engine is what's holding all those services. So they want to reprogram how graphics are handled, how the memory manager is more effectively handling models, things like that. That's basically the modification of a service on that engine. So they're and an engine, I think, believe JB kind of said, is a broad term. It just encompasses a lot of different of the components that are those services. JB answered me, when the CS team uses the term ARCs or bots, that's actually a lot harder to run. Yes, those are network clients running each individual character shown on the screen. When the term NPC is used, those exist purely on the server and are easier on the network end. That's correct. So basically they're functioning like players. Now we need to see tests where we actually have enough art in CU to have unique characters. And when we start actually having uniquely designed characters, that'll be the real test. And I realistically believe that is going to drop the how much we can see on screen by magnitudes. I mean, I think it'll still end up being, if they can pull 600 people unique on a screen and keep it at 30 FPS, I think they still have a winner. But it's not going to be thousands. I can't imagine. I mean, that's their goal, and I hope they can reach that goal. But you have to look at it. I'm looking at from the realistic information that we already have. Each character is unique when arcs and bots and PCs are used. They're given random armor, gear, and diet equipment. They are? Because I don't actually see that on the screen. That's why every time I've ever seen a test that you guys have at least posted. So I if that's true, then I retract my statement.
So, as far as we know, from the streams that we've had, the most unique thing about this engine that sets it apart, going back to what was asked earlier, is the fact of how much stuff, how much individual blocks of whatever they can have on the screen at the same time and not completely bogged down, and as Sears 421 says, a ball of flaming death.
Right. It's all about that aspect of how many character models, how much also terrain they do with, like, when they do the castle tests and all those things are individually placed. So when you're making a world, there's a way to save vastly on memory. So most games that you play, the reason why like terrain destruction and things like that aren't just casually in games at this point, even though we know the technology is out there, is because all of that means that there's a lot more memory calls on every individual like wall or anything like that. So what they do is they call what's called baking, and they bake it down so that it's a single object to call as opposed to the sum of its pieces. Um, so when you're looking at cube objects that are made in Cube, those are a sum of its objects, and that is far more impressive because they're not baked single block memory calls. They're Cherry Keep is what how many million blocks or whatever?
9.4.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming they've figured out a really cool way to kind of bake on the fly, but
See,
that is fear me humans.
it's just a troll.
No, it's drunk Spinel.
He's trolling.
He's been, yeah.
hence the little troll emote there on the screen.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Bobo. Since they often talk about using all threads possible of the core, I assume that most engines or windows don't use much of what a computer has available, or that would be how different the CU engine is.
I would just say that they probably use it for other things. For example, you go play Dark Souls. The backgrounds and the lighting and the extensively detailed character models and all of those things are what is using all of that memory. You're not going to have character models like that in a game like CU. You're not going to have the massively impressive lighting effects that you can get in an Unreal Engine or something like that. But Unreal Engine is using its resources elsewhere. Instead of being able to put out thousands of character models, it does really good lighting and things like that. And so basically what they did is they wrote a hyper specialized engine for the purposes of mass combat. The idea, and they're also to be able to have a building engine at the same time, so that they can have truly dynamic keep destruction, they can have truly dynamic building, and have unique characters, and have all of that going on all at the same time. And that is a impressive feat, but it also means it's pulling resources from all other aspects that would make a game either beautiful or whatever. They're all into speed, efficiency, and keeping the frame rate going under these conditions.
I think you also have to take a look at there, Bobo, that when you make something and you're going to use all these threading of processors and all that kind of good stuff, you can't use just arbitrary number 3,000 threads when Joey over here has got a decent gaming rig that may only have 2,500 threads. Then he's going to have some issues. So they're going to cap it at some point and leave it there, and then Malice may come in with his computer that's got 6,000 threads. Again, arbitrary numbers, whatever. So he'll be able to run things at much higher quality, that type of stuff from what they have built as their cap. So engines are going to use what they use. Like 6 cores, 12 threads in the most recent CPU, he thinks. Yep. So
yeah. So
kind of give or take.
Yeah. Right. Kind of what he's going for the point of is like, why is World of Warcraft as successful as it was? Because it could run on a dumpster fire. Like you could plug 2 wires in a potato and it could run that game.
Phone can run that game.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe vanilla, but yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that's what made the game so successful, is because it really catered to the lowest common denominator. Then you see a game like Star Citizen who says the lowest common denominator should go get a new computer because we will smash it. And they are basically like, we're going to use only the top of the line computers. If you can't hang financially to play with us, then we don't want you. And so that is the gambit. And you always have to look at that scope when you're designing. Do you want to attract a group of people who are looking for the high graphics, high quality, blah, 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 or are they looking for smooth gameplay that can attract anybody? And
JV says, historically, video game engines are not well threaded, more so due to the complexity of writing multi-thread applications with the team.
There you go.
So there's also that lovely balance of technology versus, okay, what can we actually do with it? You know, we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but do we have the ability to get, up to where we've pushed the capability of the technology to be?
The question, Dark Spittle, that I want to know is how drunk are you and what were you drinking? Because, usually I'm the drunk one. So tonight I'm actually drinking, that was soda. I'm like water.
It's really vodka, right?
I wish that was vodka.
JB's like, ooh.
So then, you also start running into, there's the things that are also really useful are the things that are kind of outside of the scope of really what the engine is, but we lump it into the engine because it's easier to just say the engine does it. But when you're talking about things like networking and how it's sending packets, how it's what data. So there's also this other scope of things, which is how much of my game do I put on your PC versus how much game do I keep on the server? Obviously, if I put more game on your PC, you can make memory calls faster than a server doing it and then network pinging you and telling you what it did. So it's always a balance between security. Obviously, if it's on your server, you can't really hack it. But if it's on the client's PC, then they can manipulate it and do things to it. So the idea in an engine, well, not in an engine, but in development, is how that plays out. And again, you find games that are highly exploited, and those are ones that put a lot more data on your client side than they should. From what JB was telling me, Camelot's big special sauce is how they're doing that and how are they handling that and how very low client side they're doing while keeping up that volume. And how that's done, I don't know. I didn't ask. It's not my. Those are heavy NDA subjects, but those details and those nuances is what they hang their hat on. Unfortunately, as we're doing this video, those nuances kind of need to be explained to people. And I feel that in some ways you stop and realize, as the article was posted on the forums, in 7 years, that's all you can hang your hat on, though. I mean, like that. At least what's everyone's seeing. Like the character races, all the other stuff like that. Even what's supposed to be on the character sheet, all those things seem so like broken and thrown together, and they're just sitting there and they don't actually do anything, and they're just like there's no real functionality that's going on, and so and in fact they're limiting functionality because of certain changes. I mean, for the better. Don't get me wrong, for the better, but they had a system that was responding to a bunch of different calls depending on where you were hitting targets and different things like that. And with a more simplified interface, that means that there's less data being passed around in that kind of crazy way.
Here's a question for you. Sahaku says, I always assume that cartoony cel-shaded graphics use less memory, or do you think that CU graphics are less demanding?
Yes. Well, it's all about polygon count. So you could make a cartoony, really high polygon count model. But usually the reason why you go cartoony is to get low polygons, to use less polygons, to make less complex models.
If you recall, MJ actually said that most of the characters were extremely low polygon count, and they had Charlotte that they were going to stick in, which was this big giant spider that was going to consist of thousands, if not millions, of different polygons to basically see what the engine can do. I don't remember hearing what the result of that test was, or even if they went through with it, but I know that was something that MJ talked about on a couple of streams way back when. Bobo says, since the game is going to run mostly on server, not on client, it's mostly their threads and cores that will be required. Presumably, yes.
Yeah, I mean that's just purchase server space, and well, I assume somewhat of a like an AWS or cloud computing. They could do a lot of things from their end on that, but the more important aspect at that point is not whether they have access to the power. They can money can buy power at that point. What it can't do is how much data can you shove down the pipe uh, via broadband, and how you can have those packets talk, and how quickly they can talk to your computer and continue to give you graphic updates at a rate that is useful. And the packet building, from what I hear, is pretty impressive. So
JB says, in a server authoritative game, your client will still need to handle rendering, animations, input, interface, and processing network data. So there will still be quite a lot that your CPU and GPU needs to handle and take care of.
right, I mean, you're still probably going to have 32 gigs worth of stuff on your computer from this, because they could still use a basic graphic skin and holding that in memory and things like that to increase your textures and all that other stuff. So,
People do like textures.
yeah. I gotta look on this stream. I'm looking in Wereby. Nope, good. We're both nice and non-fuzzy live, but in Wereby, you are a mess. Zaylen.
I was going to say, it's not me. Must be you.
You are out of focus.
So, JB, well, Malice continues on the next question I'm going to ask him. Do you have any kind of follow-up to the Charlotte test that MJ mentioned a couple times on stream way back when? And while you're answering that, Malice, given what you know of engine building and what we know of engines, 7 years for an engine?
I'm
What's more realistic for building an engine from scratch, and why might it take, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, why might it take 7 years?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, and JB can potentially answer that more than anything, but I would say that building an engine from the ground up at its core is like 1,000 hours worth of work. But that's potentially supporting a single player game or whatever. You're now talking about the real hard parts, which is getting that networking down, getting your packets down, getting all the aspects of that engine to be wound tight for the exact purposes that CU wants. So, a couple of years of development is not a big deal, but maybe 3. I mean, they've had.
Bobo says 7 years with 3 engineers as opposed to 7 years with 25 are 2 very, very different things.
Well, that's what's shocking me right now, is that if you had 3 engineers working on the engine, which is probably what we've got, is 3 engineers working on the engine, what are the other 25 people, the rest of the group, doing? I mean, I sure that they have lots of theoreticals sitting on behind the scenes, but I don't know. Like, and I'll admit, I have not rushed into a test or been available for a test in a good while now. But every time I've logged in, character models are very simple. The character building interface is really simple. You don't have a lot of choices or anything like that. Crap. I don't even know if they have do they have gender up yet for a lot of the races and stuff like that. It's a really simplified
so
thing.
Let me ask you this, and again, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Is it possible that they had a lot of people on staff because MJ's knowing, okay, we've got to focus on this. This is going to take us a while. Linuxification, which is basically rewriting everything that we did wrote, blah, 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 blah. These other people that aren't specifically working on the engine, could they be working on stuff to have things ready to go, okay, now that the engine is ready for that, we can go plop? Or we can take this thing that's been written and go, oh, we need to just tweak it a little bit, and then plop, it's in. So at this point, theoretically, it could skyrocket forward, and we could go from
I mean, that's
the
the hope and
abysmal
dream.
graphics that we have now to, some glorious thing. Let's see. Well,
Jamie,
not 7 years
answer.
on an engine. A few core system rewrites over the years that are also not specifically engine things. When doing experimental things, you don't know what is going to work or not when doing something no one else has done before.
I guess I follow up to a follow up question to you, JB, which is, as I can see it, everything in CU has been done before. There are games that fulfill every aspect and role that Camelot Chain has done, and maybe not all together, but we know how those pieces generally work at this point. You know how Minecraft works. We know how voxel engines work. They've become quite popular all over the place. We know how a lot of different aspects uh, work. I haven't seen anything that blows me out of the water other than the the streamlined code that was used to get as secure a product as you have with as much reduced lag for lots of players. Which, again, I'm not saying that that shouldn't take a couple years, but we're still talking 7. And I get that. I mean, we experimented in Warhammer all the time on things. We rewrote like how the leveling system worked like 5 different times. We like reworked classes, reworked everything over and over again. I mean, that was you do that in game development. It's not some unique concept, I guess.
I guess this is one of those things that we all just have to say, hey, it doesn't make sense, but obviously we're not going to get an answer now. Potentially we
Right.
might get one later that totally, it's like, oh, well, dude, why didn't you just say that before? But knowing MJ, he likes to keep his secrets.
Well, no, I don't. I don't. I don't even try to go wander into any conversation about keeping secrets or anything like that. I just think that he may not even always understand what's important to the rando talking to him, as opposed to what he important.
Selhako, not engine related, but did they mention how many people they gained from the Ragnaplop BX? I don't believe that MJ said specifically. I know towards the end of last year he was continually saying, "Hey, we're hiring more. We're hiring more. We're finally at the largest team that we've been at." Presumably, that was from the influx of money coming in from the investors to work on CU, as well as this, given that this was going to be a model for a lot of the tech, so that they can kind of put it together and see what works and what doesn't work. So, I mean, we don't know an exact number, but it beefed up their staff enough so that they're at a pretty decent size for a game studio.
Yeah, I'm just confused at why, and like you said, Zaylan, okay, so we've been waiting for all these things, but I'll use kind of a counter argument about putting things out. Is you got to look at Star Citizen. Star Citizen has literally come up with massive rewrites in technology on how it's handling its ships and how it's handling all of its other stuff over and over, to the fact that they're like, nope, we're not selling any more ships because we have to rewrite every ship that we already have built under this new a new thing in our engine, because it's going to make them so more high detailed and high everything else, and give more dynamic explosions and all this other stuff like that. And it's like they've done that several times, but we're always still seeing forward momentum. We're still seeing new planets appear. We're still seeing new ships exist. We're seeing a significant move forward. Even if I give Star Citizen a hard time, and I still believe that it's years away before it's done, just because of how they want to go about it. I always at least feel like they're always moving forward, and CU may be in fact doing what you say and holding all their cards close to their chest and have developed all these wonderful things, and one day they're just going to go blam. But I just you need to start putting that out, otherwise we don't see forward momentum. We haven't seen forward momentum in years, really, and
Well,
all of
the other thing we need to remember is that MJ is more of a visionary. He's not a project manager. He's not really a tech guy. He is a visionary that says this is where I want to go, and we all know that he doesn't necessarily know how to put that into words. I'm sure any of his staff would probably be shaking their heads up and down right now, agreeing. But a project manager is the type of thing, and even somebody that's extremely technical, and maybe that's Andrew's role, but we don't know how much Andrew is able to really push things through, given the visionary mind of MJ and where that kind of takes the company. I think that's kind of why things are going slow, is maybe, and again, personal opinion, there's no validity to my statement at all except just coming out of my brain. He may not really know what to do with the tech in this type of building of tech. Yes, sure, building game elements and whatnot. He can tell the team, go do it, great. But when it comes to actually moving an engine forward, that might be something that's out of his wheelhouse, and that could be another reason why it's taking so long. All of this to say, ultimately, I don't think they're jilting any of us. I don't think they're trying to screw us. As he said, they're not going, hey, more money, buy this, they haven't done that at all.
I know too many people over there who would have walked from that project years ago if that was the thing. So I don't have any belief in some conspiracy of screwing us or doing anything like that. That's definitely not in my wheelhouse.
I should have brought my tinfoil hat.
There's tinfoil lining the inside of this hat, though.
Remind me when we're off air. I need to send you a book. It's Tinfoil Hats for Cats. Because cats are plotting to take over the world. So, sorry. Anyway,
Definitely
that was a rabbit trail there.
I guess that strong question that just keeps coming to mind is, how have we not seen significant forward momentum? We saw it really early. We were like, here's Cube, here's the engine, here's this, here's awesome tests. We're showing hundreds of models doing this. And that was all they showed hundreds of models fighting each other during Kickstarter, at the end of Kickstarter. Because I looked this up just recently because Velik and I were having a little bit of disagreement because of something that was said on Sunday's stream. There really wasn't much of an engine in existence, and yet when Kickstarter started in April 2nd, 2013, they have a video by April 29th, 2013 that shows 100 models fighting in on a field. So I further the argument of going, if you progress that far in the scope of this Kickstarter in a month, 3 weeks really, then how have we not progressed in those 7 years in notable ways? I'm not saying we haven't had progress, but it seems so incremental compared to every other game's development. We should be looking at polish at this point at 7 years, not core raw model still.
But Linuxification.
I get that it's a fun buzzword, but I get what he's doing. But honestly, that shouldn't have been that big of a deal. Even if that somehow bumped things back, 4 months? 6 months? I mean, it's literally moving operating systems. There was probably a big mess to do it, but you got a bunch of people working on it.
Well, they had two. I think 2 people working on it for a while. 2 engineers.
There you get 2 engineers. Because at the end of the day, too many. There becomes a point where you don't want to
get in the way.
You don't want a bunch of people working on it. You want a couple people focused specifically on that.
Bubba, I think you hit something on the head here. Also, I think that they really want to make an awesome engine so that no matter how good or bad CU turns out, a great engine would ensure their survival as a company for quite a while. Personally, I think that's right on the money. I think MJ has got other things that he also wants to do, and this experiment that he did at the beginning of this Kickstarter, not expecting this to go forward, blah blah blah. This engine is going to allow him to possibly do some greater things later. And knowing MJ, we're all just going to be like, "Oh yes." Who knows?
And you don't know. But I will say this about the idea of selling this engine. Um, Unlike most studios, you pretty much have to be a C++ programmer to work there, which means you're not. So if I take Unreal Engine, the engines that make money, Unity, Unreal, Game Maker, all these other things, they're interface driven. They have the tools already built into them. They're packaged. They're working forward. The tools that I've gathered from CU are really high knowledge, high expertise level tools. They're not, oh, I know how I can go into Unreal and I want to create logic paths. So I just string logic paths between block functions and do this and blah, blah, blah. And it all works. And I can create animations that way and do all this other stuff. And those tools are not in existence. They're really bare bones ish, like high efficiency, high skill use tools. And so I'm not sure who they're going to sell that engine to.
Could it be that way because he has said over and over and over again that he has been having issues hiring a tool maker?
But they have people writing tools in house.
But that's not their
main job. Sure. But that, again, if you're going to write an engine, if you're looking to sell like an Unreal or something like that, you're talking about teams of people that work just on polishing that turd, like to make it awesome. During Kickstarter, the engine, a couple of dozen hastily written C++ files, had only a few different models. A batch rendering allowed you to show that many on screen. It's quite a different thing. I wouldn't put a stock in it. Things shown there as any meaningful tech. Now, I get it, but again, we move from the idea of that could be whipped up in 3 weeks by Andrew, by himself, basically, and now we're 7 years in. Well, that further proves what I suggest in a way, Malice. Lately, there is a direction for service rather than products. MJ always said he prefers the submodel. He's probably thinking the same way for renting, offering their engine to companies. I mean, see, and I guess I look at it from a design standpoint, which is the people who are going to buy an engine from you want to be more user friendly because they can then run it at lower cost, lower paychecked employees. They could throw some design guys in there for $35 a year and tell them how to use the tools, and they just smash out logic. Here's how to do pathing. Drop these clicks. Okay, do this. Blah 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 blah. But if that stuff is not that clean and that sellable, the big companies, the new, if they put out a new Star Wars: The Old Republic 27, the God mode of God modes game or whatever like that they want to, whatever new super MMO comes out, they're going to have enough money and they're going to have enough detailed purpose in what they want to do that I don't think selling that engine is going to be of use to them. This is a very specifically written engine for a very specific purpose.
So let's move into another part of this whole why would a company use any particular type of engine? If I'm a large company, why would I choose to buy an engine versus make my own? Obviously, there's a money component to it. But if I buy an engine, something you've said in a previous stream is they're probably going to strip it all the way down and build it up how they want. Wouldn't you just program one from the start?
No, because even if you strip it down, you're still probably saving half the development time. Because what you're doing usually is, you're messing with components of it. You're going, I want to render graphics in this way, or I really need this engine does all these graphic things that I want it to do, but its networking is really lacking. So we're going to program a big, beefy networking module. Well, it's also going to make that we have to tweak a little bit of the graphics module to maybe downplay it so that our networking module can get all the assets it needs. But it's still easier to tweak than it is to write from scratch. Because then you're basically, because you could go like build a base engine and then run around and say, I want terrain destruction. So you can go buy Havoc and slap that in. Or you could go buy physics engine and slap that in. You could do all these things and slap them in and kind of snap tight them and build a basic engine. But then you're doing the same thing. So you've already bought a package deal at that point. So buying things like Unreal, especially again for the small developer, is quintessential to its existence. They don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every single time they want to make a game. Again, a game like Star Wars: The Old Republic, with $200-300 million in development, they actually started with an engine and ripped it to its core, and so hacked that thing up that it was not really what it was originally. But that's for the huge AAA game companies. That isn't for the mass market of game developers.
How does the Overmind tool play into, at least what we know about the Overmind? How does that play into the engine?
I know nothing about Overmind.
Okay, fair. JB says, you also get a base of programmers, designers, and artists that are familiar with the tool set of said engine. Tons of developers consider themselves specifically an Unreal programmer, for example. That makes complete and total sense.
Yep.
JB, why aren't you sitting here?
Because he really wanted to just watch and laugh at this. See me try to explain it.
Overmind is not an engine tech; it's a gameplay system. Good to know. Thank you. I probably should have known that. But
what does Overmind do?
It overs the mind.
Ooh, I love overing minds.
I know MJ kind of did his soapy wash over when he read through the list that people literally made him read through. The stream was funny, Malice. If you watched it, he puts up this big, huge list of all these things that they've worked on to show that they've worked on stuff. Great, cool. I'd say probably 90% of the things on that list, nobody had any clue what they were. A lot of the mobile users were like, no, MJ, you're not going to get away with just leaving it up there. Read the list. So he sat there and read through the list, one by one by one, and tried to give a brief explanation on stuff, but, it's MJ. Question at JB. JB, I still have the setup from last week. You could just jump in here. We get this going. Overmind will allow devs to add stuff easily in the game, though, right? Too long didn't read, and super simplified, an AI and game/scenario decision maker.
So is it supposed to be like an advanced version of what like Star Wars: The Old Republic did, with where you're basically making selections, or you're talking about even a more like when you say a scenario decision maker? I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly.
Telling you, JB, just jump in here. Your life's gonna be so much easier.
I don't want to talk.
TT2, Gladius, if you read the stuff, you would have noticed the time change. Just saying.
Yeah, we've only been going for 49 minutes, man.
Think Left 4 Dead is what JB's saying.
Okay, so basically, like the more unique way that zombies will do attacks differently on each time you do a playthrough.
Pretty much.
Where the witch is not always in the same spot, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
JB says right.
Okay. I guess the further question is, I always assumed that there was going to be some type of flora and or fauna of mobs in the game in some way, not necessarily in need of going and grinding them or doing anything like that, but walking through the woods and finding a bear, doing things like that might attack and do damage. And we also know that there's the depths, which are going to have bunches of super mobs and hellions and all kinds of whatever types of creatures are going to be down in there. Is that the type of thing that Overmind's going to be focusing on? Is things like the depths and how those things randomly exist in the world? Annoying mobs to run around after you, so other passing by something went that way. Yep. How you know most people exist in any given game? Hey, there's mobs running that way.
Train.
We should go chase those mobs and find out who that was, so we can go kill them.
Lashing back.
Yeah. They went that way. They literally need like mobs that actually have voiceovers. It goes, yeah, we just saw the Hypernians go that way, or some crap. Sorry,
TDD sympathizers. Like, yeah, they went that way. That would be funny to run across NPCs that are sympathizers for different realms.
Yeah,
totally mess with your head. Well, we know that, cow corpse chuckers, so we got to have cows and all that kind of stuff.
Corpse chucker. Well, you could just use your dead teammates.
Skippy, if you're still watching, just know that I will put you in a corpse chucker one of these days and chuck you.
And you may not even be a corpse.
That's true.
We may tie your dwarf up and throw it in the damn freaking chucker.
JB says, probably Overmind is not something I've worked on. Just know what it is from discussions within the team, setups, etc. I can't go into any detail.
Fair enough.
Getting lines. Hi, Chris. There's a line of people to literally chuck Skippy's corpse over the wall or body. It'll be a corpse by the time it lands.
And see, I think the correctness is the fact that the line actually moves. So Skippy's going to get lost and Chris is going next.
He will be alive. Not when he lands. Nope. All right, Malice. You had like a whole list of stuff for engines, and I completely forgot a few of the things that you said. Have we hit everything?
Basically what engines do. Then the question is there's a lot of other aspects of game design from the technical standpoint that it's how servers track your character models, doing a lot of other things like that. I'll use an example. World of Warcraft checks occasionally where you're located. So on my screen, to you, I'm standing next to you. But on my screen looking back, I may be 10 feet in front of you. And it just kind of plays with this like loose wiggle room of action. But it also means that the servers are not overly stressed by keeping track of you. It's a totally fine functionality for PvE style games. In a game like CU or like back in Dark Age of Camelot, things were much more tight. They had to know exactly where you're at, especially in Dark Age of Camelot, where attacks were very positional. I could stun if I was behind you. I would do more damage if I was next to you, and all of these other things. And
so
all
this is that idea of server lag,
right? And where you start seeing people rubber band. Also, it frees up the ability to do speed hacking easier if you are like have looser reins. Because if the server is constantly going, hey, are you there? Hey, are you there? Hey, are you there? Hey, are you there? Then when you try to speed hack, it goes, whoa! And like can throw up red flags, can drop you off the server, can do all kinds of things in reaction to you. If it's like, you see, you're still here, right? You're a little farther. Is that right? I'm predicting you should probably be about there now. And you just go, yeah, that's where I am, speed hack. Like, so, that's So different things like that are what also causes a lot of latency in games, and that's always decision making. Everything in the design process, from the polygons and textures to your models, to how you constantly are locating objects, to how your database is handling where uh, items, how often items are tracked, how all of these things, not just even the base engine, but how all these other aspects are interacted is what creates latency, and how you can handle that data and keep enough memory on both sides to make sure that you have high frame rate. And all of those are give and take. If you want this, it's gonna cost you this. You can't have both, and it's like the old adage when I worked at Mythic. They had big posters up, of course. It's like cost, speed, quality, and you always try to create a balance because you can do two of these things.
Pick two.
Yeah, you cannot do all three. And server behaviors, how they interact with the game, how you interact with the game, how all these aspects all fall into that pyramid. You get to pick two. Something gets lost. Something will always be lost, and so it's always a decision. And at the end of the day, you want in a PvP game, you want tighter server locations so that you can't. And you also want really good server occlusion. So what that means is
Here's some big words now.
Oh yeah. Ideas like, so I stand behind a wall. You've never seen me there. So I need to never send you a packet. You need to never know I'm actually there, because that saves communication. I don't know you're there, therefore I don't need to send you information about that person. Which is also helpful when you're trying to reduce the ability to cheat. If you think a game, yes, every game is cheated every single time. Dark Age Camelot had a really bad one that was fairly popular. It was originally called Odin's Eye. It got much more streamlined and everything like that. But how Odin's Eye originally worked was they had a bunch of security that would notice if you tampered with a packet. Well, so what they did is they ran the data through a second computer, and they would rip apart the packet, pull out the data they wanted, slap the packet back together, then push it to the client. Then the client would push it back to the server. So it was never, the client and the server never saw the packet get shredded for its content.
Sounds like a lot of work to cheat.
Yeah, but it meant that they had full radar, because all the information of where a stealth person was, where everything else, all was, you could now see through Odin's Eye. And in a game where there's perma stealth and all that stuff, that's significant advantage. That was the hope and dream, is that they're not sending that data anymore. They clearly do not send that information, and if they don't send that information, voila! Not only is the packet more streamlined, but you can't cheat. You can't break it apart to find out if there's somebody there.
JB, I guess what I mean by a lot of work is, I'm going to log in, I'm going to play the game, I'm going to play the shit out of the game. To set up a whole nother computer to have that done, to me, that's a lot of work.
I mean, in the end, cheaters be cheaters. They're the exact same people on the negative end of the people who write mods for World of Warcraft. Well, it took them hundreds of hours potentially to write the deadly boss mods or something like that, but they did it because it was fun. That was what they wanted to do. That's what cheaters do. They just are the negative of a mod writer.
I'm with Gladius, like the character builders or anything else. One person does a lot of the work, everyone else copies and pastes.
Yep.
Why not?
Very much. Is it more work than actually crafting an arcade? That's good. These days, you wouldn't need a different computer. Oh yeah, they did. Eventually, they Odin's Eye got so streamlined that they were no longer running a second computer, doing all that type of stuff. But when it first was created, that was how it was done.
So, if we're looking at CU and getting hundreds of thousands of people on your screens, is that really what us as the community wants in a PvP RVR game? Do we really want thousands of people on the screen? Is this just going to turn into another Zerg game?
Well, a game like Warhammer or a game like Dark Age Camelot was a Zerg game. I mean, that's how you're supposed to take castles. You're supposed to show up en masse and hold a giant, long, drawn out, hours long battle for a castle. So that's going to attract hundreds, if not potentially 1,000 players. The reality is that really is the most important is, and that's the one fear I have, is that because CSE has spent so much effort hyping how many people are supposed to be on the screen, that I fear that they may design too much around that idea.
Hyping or justifying the tardiness?
No. I mean, like, it's again. I'm not trying to go negative on this. I'm just trying to make the statement that you can have a great service, and when it is needed, it's wonderful, because when you have that final battle, the people are making this giant push. They've been building up weeks of resources and everything like that, and he's finally found the Uber Castle, and they need 1,000 people to smash down the doors and finally dig this last tick out of the zone before they can do all this stuff. If that's the game experience, then those are the moments when you want 1,000, 2,000 people on the screen that will make the most epic, awesome thing you'll ever see. If you make it PV Door Warhammer, where it's just a blob of people running around exchanging freaking keeps, then you hope that then it's going to be supporting that, but it's going to actually be detrimental to the game as a whole.
Is there really ever going to be 1,000 people on screen? Clearly, you've never done the Candle Quest of Arcade Unchained. Look at Eve. You get the occasional 3 to 5k player plus battle, but most SOV warfare is done in the 100 to 300 range, and sometimes even as few as 20 to 30 or smaller alliances.
Correct. And that's how Dark Age was. It's like even small skirmish groups would go at castles and they'd get fended off and stuff like that. And eventually there would be like some actual push. Some alliance would gather everybody in the faction and they'd run 100, 200 players or whatever like that through the zone and start killing people and going for castles. Unfortunately, you really couldn't go much bigger than that, because if you end up with a 3-way fight over Keep, I've been into them on Dark Age of Camelot where there's 600 players, and the problem is not the experience. The problem is the lag, and the
slideshow.
Skipping through the world and going, oh, I don't know what's going on. I hope I don't. Oh, look, I died. I don't even know what hit me because of the lag,
The opposite of Guild Wars 2, that designed a game fully around the Zerg combat, but didn't have the capability to handle that many players in a spot.
Right. Which is, that shows the detriment of what happens when you don't support a massive amount of players in a keep scenario, is you have our crew running around a corner and going, oh, look, there's 25 guys. We could totally take them. Attack. All of a sudden, names start popping into existence around you. And then all of a sudden, you're dead because it was actually 120 players standing there.
So let me ask a flip side question. It's not meant to be negative, but might come across as negative. Later on in the history of the game, obviously the amount of people that are going to play it is going to dwindle down. And we're going to get to the point where, as Hihaku says, you'll never have that many people on screen. At that point in the game's life, was this engine really worth it for the game to spend this long building an engine that could handle that many players when there aren't ever going to be that many players playing?
It's the same reason why you drive a Mustang. It's not because you can go 160 miles an hour all over the place, but you have an engine in a car that can take you 0 to 60 real quick. And that's what this engine will allow them to do, is even if it's just 100 people fighting, it means that there is no lag whatsoever. If it's supporting potentially 1,000 people at 30 frames per second, 100 people will be cake, and you won't have a drip of lag. And that is the experience you really want. We're talking about the maximum of pushing the engine to its edge. Well, sure, you don't want to drive. I mean, maybe we want to drive, but we can't drive our car with the pedal up or the pedal down. There's a lot, 98% of driving is way in the middle, and that's what you design around. They want to design for the top, they want to make it a sports car, but you can't drive a sports car at 160 through your neighborhood.
Look at him being all smart. Let's see. Bobo says they won't encourage Zergs, but they will allow it to be tech-wise without becoming a slideshow for other players, at least. We hope that they won't encourage Zergs, but given that Zergs are what they are, who knows if they'll develop anyway. What I'll be curious to see is how CSE then deals with the Zerg mentality. If they don't want it to be Zerg, how do you discourage that? Or will they? Or will they just let it go and say, people are having fun, whatever, we don't care?
There's no reason to discourage it. I mean, as long as the overall core design, which in my mind, what they've at least said will exist, will create layered combat, and layered combat's all you can ask for. What I mean by layered combat, I'll use a Guild Wars 2 concept, which is that you have castles. The Zergs go and smash castles. You have small fighting groups, 10, maybe 15-man players at best. They run around and they capture the camps. They go and hunt the yaks that are running supplies to the castles. They do all this other stuff. And there's a layer of combat that exists. Now, the flaw in Guild Wars 2 was that you could almost see one keep next to the other keep. And so the Zerg had to run through you. And so it just kind of the small groups all the time. But in a much larger scope game where there's large caravans that are going to have to travel large distances and all this other stuff, you're going to have small bands that are going to be doing protection missions. They're going to be doing attack missions on caravans. They're going to be going after the mines and the resource nodes and all the other stuff, while the Zergs are going to be battling over those keeps. So it's going to be a multi-tiered, multi-functional experience. You're right. 10 people are, unless it's a poorly designed keep, 10 people aren't supposed to take a keep. That's just by design. The Zerg's supposed to fight there. Because that's what you need all those people for. But because it is not going to be a PV door experience, there's not just a bunch of set keeps that you can just run a circuit and keep knocking them over and gain points. There's no reason to keep the Zerg together except for whatever mission it is to do, which is, I need to smash this keep, then smash that keep. All right, we're done for today. As opposed to, we're going to do this for 6 hours. Oh, isn't it fun? We thank you, Guild Wars 2.
Also, with a scalable engine like that for the CU architecture, at least it reduces the costs significantly when lower player numbers are active as well. More players equals more cost, but more playing. Less players equals less with less playing.
There you go. Especially when you're talking the streamline of how they're handling bandwidth. Bandwidth costs cash. Every X amount of data costs X amount of money. And so if they make the most clean, streamlined packets and they're shoving the least amount of data to you in the most efficient way possible, then that's fantastic. And that just drops their costs.
Money, money, money.
At the end of the day, it's a business. It may be a heartfelt, wondrous idea that he really is passionate about, but it's still a business. It still needs money to run.
Which MJ has said on a stream that he was going to pass along those savings to the sub price to people that play the game. It'll be a lower than normal sub price. We'll see if that still holds true when we get to release, but at least that's what he has said in a previous stream. Let's see. If you didn't have 3 groups on the map, At the same time, for X number of hours, the people in this P battle, the Zerg fight never happened. Warhammer. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that's the one problem with static keeps. The one thing that will be very interesting with non-static keeps in this idea is that you're going to have also non-keeps that will be in existence. If I can create a tower or a defensive camp or different things like that through the use of building, because I'm a small guild of 10 guys, we're just all friends, we just play around, we're not going to build a castle. We can't afford it. That's not what we're there in the world for. But we're going to find some nodes, and then we're going to build, oh, we found a mine. Cool. Let's build some defenses around it. Let's build a tower we can stick some archers on and shoot down on people and, do some cool stuff like that. You don't need a Zerg to take it. And a Zerg isn't going to form up just to go attack it. I mean, maybe if a Zerg's running by, they might stop and kick it over for giggles. But like, if the world's big enough, they're not focused on that. They're looking for Velik's 300-person guild standing on the walls of their keep, all pulling up their kilts, shaking their asses at the enemy, going, "Ha ha ha! Come get us, jerks!" And that's what the Zerg is going to be coming for. So,
coming for Velik's ass. That's great. Ooh. Do we know if they are done building their engine? Like, are they in actual development of the game, like full 100% now, or are we still kind of doing habsies almost? And JB, if you know, I'd be curious to know. If you know or you can't say, that's fine. I mean, but that would be an interesting question that we'll try to get asked.
Until the day they launch, they will always be doing tweaks. That would be kind of foolish not to.
But I don't see tweaks as we're still building the engine. I mean, at some point you can say the engine is done. Yes, we have to tweak it, but the engine is done, and now we are 100% into the development production of CU. At some point, you've got to hit that thing, and I think everybody expects that tweaks are going to happen. If it's anything like my dad and car engines, they'll never be done.
Right. I mean, that's the thing is it becomes part of the argument I was making on Sunday of just like, now we just need the focus and push to make everything else happen. Because if CU wants to wow their fan base and really pull their fan base back tight in after this Ragnarok thing, they need to do some big content drops. And I don't mean back-end things. They need to slam out a lot of character models. You don't understand,
but
MJ.
Not drawings. Not drawings. Like character models on the screen would be
great. Right, I know. MJ needs to realize that what he probably writes off as the easy part is the eye candy that moves the fan base. And so he needs to slam out a bunch of character models. He needs to put out a new, very clean, efficient, and working character builder. Make sure all those things are starting to function. Start doing more testing in the realm of building abilities and doing all that other stuff. Like, we heard so many systems in this game that are supposed to exist, but they don't. As was said on repeat during the Sunday stream, we want to see crafting, even if it's a rudimentary system. And, I can't argue with that. It's systems that people want to see. They don't understand that there is this giant network of awesomeness behind, but they don't see it. And people are visual. They want the eye candy. They want the candy dangled in front of them, and the best candy in the world is pretty,
JB says that often some things are mentioned or confused with engine that really are just core gameplay tech and systems. Right. He says also part of the team has been doing engine work, part of the team has been doing gameplay for years. It's not an actual all aboard with the engine work. I wonder if that would change, if that would have... we can if questions all night long, but I wonder if that would have changed the timeline if it was, let's attack the crap out of this engine, get it built, we're done, minor tweaks
Uh,
moving forward, and then everybody shifts and, because if you
well,
can put Dayak out in, 18 months, they said?
yeah, but it was slapped on an engine that they had to jimmy a lot of things in, and it caused a lot of lag and had tons of problems.
Right, but they can do that, so if they have an engine built specifically for the content that they're making.
But they had to get to that point.
Right. But I'm saying if they had everybody working on that, could it have been done faster? Could it?
So this is an endless circular argument I have with people all the time, which is people go, why haven't they finished this bug over here? They just put out 3 new costumes in the shop, but they haven't fixed this bug over here. Yeah, because those 3 people don't know how to frickin' program what the hell you're talking about. They're fricking artists. It's the same concept. People are hired for different reasons, and you don't just hire them, and you don't want novices throwing their hands in a Andrew's pot of goodness and going, oh, maybe I'll tweak this. That'll work. I'm sure that would probably double the development time of that engine, not half it.
Well, that's why you need a good project manager. I can see a new stream, Malice. Circle Jerk with Malice.
I believe that would get us kicked off of Twitch because we get a lot of creeps in here that would be like, so what are we fapping over today?
Gladius says, nah, do it the other way. Put out some flashy shit and get people really sold.
Right, that's what I was saying.
That would help.
You got to throw out some candy. I mean, and not just more and more cool tech drawings, but I want to see character models. I want to see new weapons and new really fancy stuff. I want to see.
And here's the thing that bothers me. I think MJ tried to do that with the last stream that they had, where he actually showed gameplay video from, right, he said back in May, and then let people get into the server to see all the trebuchets and the little minuscule mages that you can't actually see, firing stuff back and forth. That wasn't really candy to us. That was just kind of more of the same thing, just a lot of it.
Ooh, right. I mean, at the end, it's at its core, what he's trying to do is show off the tech. Well, people have been listening to the tech of this game for 7 years. People don't understand how putting these games together works. They just know that the game is closer to being done when they can log in and play with a character creator that gives them 42 different options for a face and run around in the world. I mean, let's be real. That's what people really want. They want to spend 2 hours playing dress up, get their character sheets all laid out how they want, and then pick some cool weapons and run around and do have some fun. And without that, people are like, well, this doesn't look even like beta quality. Okay. Hey. What did JB say? You could go on forever with the ifs, but yeah, it's not always the most efficient thing to build gameplay tech that works with the engine in one way. Then that engine works different later. Those gameplay systems need to then also be reworked, which is kind of what you were talking about with the whole. But you still need to throw enough layered candy in there to. Star Citizen, again, for all my complaints about it, did it right. Here's the new eye candy. I mean, it may even just sit in your hangar, but oh my God, does that ship look sweet as fuck?
Gladius said it perfectly. 4 hours making a face, 3 minutes into the game, puts on a full plate helmet.
Full plate helmet.
Oh, yeah. JB has always been one of the difficulties with Kickstarter development, often trying to show things off, so making things to show throughout the whole process.
And I totally get that.
That's the double-edged sword of trying to be ultra transparent with your game development.
But it's also the reality that we're at 7 years. We're not having this conversation at 3 years worth of development. We're having it at 7. You guys should have been teched out at 5, and we should have been starting to see polish roll in. And we're told it's beta 1. I'm not sure. Is it considered an alpha still?
No, I'm saying it.
Right.
What we're seeing and what we're doing, it's an alpha.
That's a really basic alpha to everyone who is I mean, I have, as I said on Sunday, I have literally beta alpha tested 24 different games. This has never been even vaguely a beta. And I'm talking over 20 years. I'm not talking just the recent stuff where obviously a lot of companies have gotten into the idea of beta is just the showcase of the finished product. But like on Star Wars: The Old Republic, I beta tested that thing for over a year before it launched. And it at no point was it was 100 times more done at the point of me walking into beta tests than we've ever seen on CU. And it's kind of rough, you know. And that wasn't open. None of that was open. I get out in the first wave of friends and family. You know, like I didn't even get in. Like I got in before anybody else who ever signed up for beta. You know, so it's not like I got to see a bunch of like, and you know, there were bugs and problems and all the other stuff like that, but there were still cities and fully developed characters and fully developed quest lines and fully all these things. And sure, you ran into broken stuff and all that stuff because that's a beta test, but there was still a game there. There's no game in Camelot Unchained. It's a tech project. That's all I see every time I log in for a test. It's just a tech project. And again, if we were in 3 to 4 years of this of development, I wouldn't even blink an eyelash at that. But we're at 7 years. I've never seen a game go 7 years and not flop horribly. Because
JB, none of this is directed at you.
no.
We appreciate the answers that you're willing to provide to us. None of this.
Yeah, this is not a direct conversation to you. This is not, and I get it. You know,
it's frustrating.
You've put 7 years of effort into this, and I know you've worked hard and done a lot of great things.
And this community loves you.
Appreciates it. Yeah, this is not an attack on you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to be as real as the community as a whole is feeling, which is this is a level of incomplete that is not acceptable at 7 years of development.
That said, one of the things that we are trying to do with MMO Grind is to get more of the developers on, because like JB, a lot of them are awesome people. And I think that they get a bad rap because CSE kind of has a sour taste in people's mouth. But when you sit down and actually talk to these people, they're freaking cool. And they do some really awesome stuff. So one of the things that we're going to be trying to do is reaching out to CSE to go, hey, can we interview more of your people? Not to talk about what they do specifically with CU and ask questions for CU, but just ask what they do as a programmer, as an artist, as a storyteller, as a whatever it is that they do. Let's get to know them. Because that was a lot of fun when we did that with you, JB. So,
yeah, definitely. I actually really need to poke Bull on that and see if I can get Bull on here. That'd be great. He's a fun guy, and Ben would be a riot. Maybe Max will come on there. You know, I don't know Max like personally, but
we've poked him.
You know, I've said some maybe unflattering things. I think he should come to this show and defend himself.
Everybody has a cool story, and I love hearing the stories. There you go. You got anything else there, Malice?
I mean, specifically about like engines. I mean, we've been relating this a lot to Camelot Unchained, but we also have to look at some of the just amazing tech that we've seen in other games. Like I keep bringing up Star Citizen. Star Citizen has done some amazing things with the CryEngine tech that they've been using, and now Lumberyard that they're using, and all of those pieces that they've been putting together that have been really amazing, and some of the tech that they have invented that's from the ground up that has been really cutting edge for especially the graphic side of things, and the ability, which is something that a lot of people take for granted, but they ran this demo, and I believe you can go play it, play the quest line currently in their alpha test. I think it's still considered alpha. So this quest line, And at one point, you're inside a base, and you're looking at a window, and then you're looking in the window of another ship, and there's a player in there. That player can wave at you, and you can wave back. That is huge tech. You're literally talking about making a transparent wall through a space into an object that is carrying people, that is mobile and can move around and fly, that isn't sealed off, that is also giving you clear windows and them being able to interact with you both. And it sounds like the dumbest thing when like you like just try to explain such, well, yeah, that seems like such a simple concept. But like when you look at how that works in code and how like like when you go play in WoW, for instance, and you get almost any game that has a mount in it, right? Your model doesn't just sit on a mount and ride around. He's not like two different things. He literally becomes a new object called like player plus mount. um, and so that's kind of what tech you're expecting to see in something like Star Citizen, and realizing that they're trying not to do that. They're trying to keep all the individual pieces moving while still, as they're still working on trying not to drop everybody out of the ship when it decides to hit hyperspeed. But yeah, I mean, they're working on it, But I mean, their goals and the technology that they're working with is breathtaking and is going to give a level of interaction that I don't think most players have ever really experienced in a game before. Um, then we see some of these graphic engines that are coming out in new games too. A lot of the first the single player games or the small group games, like even the graphics in things like Monster Hunter and stuff like that, are really impressive, especially for small group gameplay. Anthem, for all of the things that were wrong with Anthem, a gorgeous game.
It's being redone.
Yes, it'll be Anthem 2. We're sorry, is going to be the name of it.
But it's been officially confirmed that BioWare is rebooting Anthem.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to. They made 6 hours of content and then basically made some dailies. So I mean, what we could see in the technology in the larger scale of engines is impressive. There is a lot of really cool stuff out there. Every time new waves of games are coming out, graphics. I mean, that's what I hope is in the next 10 years. I would like to see us being able to winnow down that you can only have two pyramid. Like, I want to see more graphical candy with more players available, kind of thing. Like, I would love to see a lot of that. And oh my god, if we get into things like the basics of quantum computing, kind of like where they can start using different instead of polygons, they're using different uh, data points and things like that to create objects. We'll see some really incredible tech come out.
So that's why CU is taking so long. They're on the cutting edge of creating new tech for everyone else to use as we move forward into the future.
They are future tech. Honestly, the
it's
thing
possible.
that you're going to I think Star Citizen is more on the cutting edge of tech that will be used more frequently. I'm not saying that anything that Camelot Unchained couldn't and will be used eventually, but it'll be more of a niche of genres, whereas a lot of the interesting tech that they're doing with Star Citizen is things that you can more regularly see in first person shooters and in like small like single player games and lots of stuff like that. And apparently it sounds like the world is coming down on Zaylan because his eyes went to the ceiling.
Oh no, I have a data monitor up here. So
I thought you were like, stuff. Oh god, the kids are awake. So like a boat in Darkfall.
All right.
All right. It must be time to end the stream. Malice Cat is getting jealous. Yes. Dude, so as a complete random side note, as of pure raw amusement, my cat does not like he likes to give me attention, but he's not much of a lap cat. Um every literally several months he'll decide, oh, I'm gonna sit in your lap today. Today, I literally set an appointment that I had to be at, set it on my phone, put the phone down, and was like, all right, I got 10 more minutes to play Raid Shadow Legends. Just a nice clicker. And I could just be like, okay, sitting there. And all of a sudden he wants to sit in my lap. And I'm like, bro, right now? Really? I got to get up in 10 minutes. And he literally just curled up right here, just passed out. I'm like, sorry, bro. So I felt he was a little heartbroken today. So I think that's why he's also giving me attention.
So next week on MMO Grind, we have the YouTuber Swipper, who makes a lot of CU related videos. We'll be talking about all the possibilities and whatnot of how can we make Ragnarok fun. And last
that game has a lot of potential. MJ, you should watch that episode.
So we're gonna talk with Swipper, the YouTuber, next week on Tuesday. This will be the normal time, starting 10 o'clock Eastern, and then after Swipper, SWIPPER. I don't know.
I figure he's Swiper from like what's her name? The girl who travels around all over the place. Swiper, no swipey. You know, come on, you have kids. Do you know what Dora the Explorer?
No.
You never watched Dora the Explorer with your kid?
Nope.
Wow.
We don't watch crap. So that'll be on the 18th. On the 25th, we've got Treville coming in to talk about what is it like to build in a game like CU. And he'll kind of talk about his thought process and how he did Cherry Keep and all that kind of stuff. So what the hell is wrong with you?
Me? Oh, him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope this. Yeah, how do you not know Dora? Like I've never had kids. I've never watched an episode of Dora, and there are so many memes alone about Dora.
Anyway, so that's the next couple of weeks for MMO Grind. Come check us out. Love to have you back. Bring a friend. Appreciate you all being here. Or no, it's Dora.
You look terrified, bro.
Malice, I still think we need to paint your cat green and use a green screen.
Just have it walk by.
Just have eyes and a butthole walk by. I'm with
maybe
Zaylin on this one.
You know much more about Dora than you should.
So keep an eye on MMO Grind. Engage with us in Discord. Let us know things that you want to hear us mouth off about and pretend like we know what we're doing. We'll be more than happy to oblige, and we'll also try to get a lot more of these devs from games on so we can get to know them better. Malice?
Yep. Check us out on Tuesdays. Of course, we also have the Community Town Hall on Sunday. Do we know what we're talking about yet?
Nope.
You have far more plans ahead of time than I do, so just checking. I'm usually like, oh, the episode for MMO Grind. We got 10 minutes till it launches. All right, it's this. So
it will likely be CU related.
Other than our guests, I think after that, I want to try to move away from CU for a little bit, unless we get some CU devs on that'll be happy to talk about CU. I see if I can chase up some people. I've heard rumors that I might be able to get someone from the new Diablo 4. So we'll see if we can get that.
Stay tuned.
So check out the Community Town Hall on Sunday at 5 o'clock Central. And catch us here. We've now moved to a new time slot. We're going to be at 9 o'clock Central here. So that hopefully we can get later viewers, people that are kind of done with their daily grinds and all the other stuff like that. They got their kids asleep, or started drinking or whatever they're going to do, and can come hang out with us a little bit more. So thanks all for coming out, and you have a great night.
Ciao.